Good afternoon. It is the Brian Hornback Experience, episode 180. 180. It's been a good while since I've been on here. That always seems to be the big theme every time we get on here. It's been a while. Yeah, the last time we were on here was President's Day, so it would have been about the middle of February. Had County Commissioner Shane Jackson from the 4th District on. We were over at Sam and Andy's, Bexhill. Go by and see my friends, Chris Captain, Josh, Big D, all those guys over at Sam and Andy's, Bexhill. They got some of their normal stuff like Vol Burger, grilled chicken, salmon salad, all those good things. And they're also introducing some new stuff. So go by and check those guys out. They've got beer now. Tuesday nights is $2 long necks. It's Tuesday when I'm recording this. No, it's Monday when I'm recording this. So go by there tomorrow. Anyway, this is March 31st. So I did not end the month of March without doing a podcast. Hallelujah. Anyway, that tune is moved to Knoxville. I have permission to air that, and so I'm doing that as my intro, and if I remember, my outro. This is the Brian Hornback Experience, episode 180, coming to you from the Old Forge Distilling Podcast Studio. And you know what? I've got the Republican presidents up here behind me. Totally forgot to put the Old Forge barrel head over here. Sorry, Brian, but I am wearing the aged 10 years Old Forge Distillery shirt. Get the barrel head up next time, all right? I promise. Just want to come on and talk to you a little bit about things that happened in March. As you know, I am a member of the Tennessee Republican Party's State Executive Committee. I represent District 6, which follows the state Senate districts. So I represent this. I am the committee man that represents the same district that Senator Becky Duncan Massey serves. My cohort in the on the SEC is Jane Chedister, and Jane's been on there for a number of years. But we are 2 of 6 that have that represent parts of Knoxville. We have in District 5, which is Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally's district, we have Mayor Terry Frank as the committee woman. Former Knox County Sheriff Tim Hutchison is the committee man. And we're District 6. And then in District 7 is represented by Senator Richard Briggs. That committee woman is Karen Brown. The committee man is Kent Morrell. We just got through this weekend with reorganizing the Knox County Republican Party. It's required every 2 years. County parties are a subset of the state party. They do have the ability to have their own bylaws. It's this year. It's the year of the reorg that they have the ability to submit bylaws, to have their own bylaws. I think September is the deadline for that. And so if the leaders that were elected on Saturday choose to attempt some bylaws for the Knox County, then they can do that. One thing about county bylaws is they can't be more stringent than the state bylaws. So that's it needs to follow the state bylaw. I would recommend to any counties, and I know that I have listeners all over the state, all over the U.S., and so I would recommend anybody who has become a new chairman across our state that may be tuning into this, that when you do decide to embark on bylaw changes, that you do follow the state bylaws, and that maybe you even make it so so elementary as to say this is where we want to adjust our county bylaws to be different than the state bylaws, always using the state bylaws as your template. You don't need to make it any more complicated than it already is. But this has been through the end of March. We've got about every county party needs to have reorganized by April the 15th. And so we have about 12 more counties to go until we have completed it. Basically, they could start as early as January 15th. I know that, I believe it was Rutherford County got permission to go ahead and go before January 15th. But the bylaw states that you got to go from January 15th to April 15th to reorganize. And so many of the counties have done that. And we have about 12 more to go. I'll be at another county. I've visited several different counties as they've reorged because I like to see the difference. Clearly, at this point, Knox was probably about the third biggest, I believe. The largest, I believe, was in Shelby County. The next largest was in Williamson County. And I believe Knox came in third. There was 524 votes cast for chairman on Saturday, which is an impressive number of folks who are. Now, let's talk about this. Rule E changed this year because we've had some issues in the past with reorganizations not following exactly to the state bylaws. And so the bylaw committee, which I happen to serve on, spent a lot of time in August, September, October, really just centering on Rule E. And we really detail what you do if you have a delegated convention or if you have a mass convention and how that process is to work. I'll tell you that one of the better things that came out of that didn't work so well in a couple of counties. And so that's one thing I'm going to be bringing back to the bylaws committee. Hold on just a second here. One of those things I'm going to be bringing back to the bylaws committee is that one thing that we really did this year is that we went ahead and everybody had to register through the TennesseeGOP.org website, right? A county that's pretty close tried not to do that, so they had told some of their folks early on to register locally. And then at the last minute, they wanted to dump their data into the state's data. Ultimately, Chairman Golden and his admin looked at the data. You know, it was less than 3 dozen. There were some duplicates. So, you know, it worked okay. But one thing I want to do, from my personal opinion, is that one thing that we did was we only shared the registration information with the chairman of the Contest and Credentials Committee. Every county party has to have 5 individuals that are appointed to serve on the Contest Credentials Committee. And so it was the chairman of the Contest Credentials Committee and then the SEC members in that county. And so in Knox County, that would have been actually 7 people that had access to the registration information. Unfortunately, in some counties, there were breaches in the chain of command of that registration information, and I believe there should be some punitive actions to individuals that may have or did, in fact, breach that chain of record or chain of command of the data. That, along with, it was a hard and fast rule that you had to vote in 3 out of 4 of the last state or federal Republican primaries. That for this convention, that was August of 2024, March of 2024, August of 2020, and August of 2024, March of 2024, August of 2022, and August of 2020. You needed to have voted in 3 out of those 4. It was a hard and fast rule. If you had moved here, as so many people have done, and you could provide your record that you had voted in a Republican primary in another state during any of those periods, then you were granted access and you were granted voting rights. The only exception that we made was for individuals under the age of 24, because under the age of 24, they would not have been able to vote as far back as 20 or 22 in many cases. And so we did make exceptions for those, particularly those who had voted or who had registered to vote and had voted in every Republican primary since they registered to vote. And so that was very good. Had one young man that had done some work for one of our Republican elected officials. He had worked for her before he turned 18. He was unable to vote for her in the August primary, but he registered to vote in late August when he turned 18, and he voted in November of 24. So he was able to participate. Now, I think from what I've seen so far in the reorganizations that I have attended and going through the Knox County Convention, and I'll be watching at least 1 or 2 more in the next 15 days because I'm recording this a little late. It's dark on the 31st. So we got about 15 more days, April 1st through the 15th. I'll see a couple more reorgs. I do think that there are some incidences where we need to possibly look at allowing some exceptions. Exceptions where maybe someone has been hospitalized, someone has been incapacitated for a period of time, and so maybe they missed particularly, let's say they missed August of 22 and they missed March of 24 because they had medical situations. Now, do we say, okay, you know that early enough on that we announced these rules in January? So while you're, could you bring a doctor's note letting us know that you were hospitalized during that time? But then again, you get into HIPAA requirements, right? So maybe that's not possible. There were other situations where individuals had, due to marriage, had changed their name, and so their record didn't necessarily match. And so I think maybe that might be another exception. Again, I'm only one of a number that serve on the bylaws committee, but that's where I'm coming from. 1, punitive action for any breaches in the chain of command of the registration data. 2, maybe a couple of exceptions for name changes because of life events and or medical incapacitation issues that caused you to miss. Those, in everything I've seen in the reorgs I've attended, in the reorgs that we just went through, I think are valid exceptions. So let's talk about, let's talk about Anderson County and Knox County. Anderson County has been real interesting. You've had for about the last 6 years, you really had kind of the same group of folks that have been kind of in charge because they've been duly elected through the reorganization process. That totally changed Thursday night. And so there's a whole new team that's running the Anderson County Republican Party. They held it, former state representative John Reagan, who was beat in the primary in August of 24. He appealed that to the state executive committee. The state executive committee did not grant him the overturn of the election results because the math just didn't work. And he couldn't prove, unfortunately, the burden of proof of that somebody who might have voted as a Democrat in the past voted, did they really vote for his opponent? Did they vote for him? I mean, you don't really know. So that was a well-charged September SEC meeting where we went to Mount Juliet to hear the arguments. Ultimately, we left Rick Scarborough on the ballot, and he won very convincingly in November. He's doing a good job in Nashville. But as we went through the reorg, it was interesting that you had a former state rep running for chairman who had already had some disagreement with the state executive committee, so to speak, who was running for party chair. And they held the convention in Clinton at the Clinton Church of God. Clinton is the home of Rick Scarborough. He's the former police chief of Clinton. To my knowledge, John Reagan lives in Oak Ridge. So why the people that set the date and time set it in Clinton, granted, people in Anderson County are going to come from Oliver Springs. They're going to come from Rocky Top. They're going to come from Clinton, Norris. They're going to come, right? And Clinton is the county seat, but you made it very easy for the elected officials in Anderson County and those that had an interest to get their people out. And really, that's what the Republican reorgs are about, okay? It was 20 years ago now, 2025, and 2005, I was elected Knox County Republican Party chairman. And it's about you getting the most people out to vote. And so Anderson County is going to have a little bit different look, a little bit different feel. And so that's good. Knox County, too, will have a different look and feel. Back in 2021, Daniel Herrera was elected chairman, and he served for 2 years. About halfway through the first year, I ended up getting on the state executive committee in August of 21 and was elected in August of 22. And so I worked with at least a year and a half of the 2-year term of Daniel Herrera. He chose not to run for re-election. Buddy Burkhart, 2 years ago, beat Keith Lyon, who was running. And so I've worked with Buddy Burkhart for the last 2 years. On Saturday, former state representative Martin Daniel was elected chairman very convincingly, 340 some votes to 150 some votes. Very convincingly, Martin Daniel was elected, and he ran with a slate of vice chair, a secretary, a treasurer, and a vice treasurer. And so all of those won because they got the people to the convention. And so, it's interesting in politics that you have back in the day when I started, back in when I was 16 years old in 1982, we were the super minority party, okay? And so I've been able to be involved at every aspect of this party, all the way up to party chairman. I've been an elected official, as many of you know. I was a school board member, and then I became party chairman, and now I'm on the state executive committee. And so I take great pride in this organization because having been involved in the early stages in 1982 when I was 16 years old, up to what I've been able to accomplish throughout the organization, we have built from a super minority party to a super majority party. We have a walkout majority in Nashville. If every Democrat in the state house, there's 99 members in the state house, if all the Democrats walk out, we still have enough votes to pass a super majority. In the Senate, it's a little more dicey because there's 33 senators, but there's only like 4 or 5 Democrats. So we still have the ability. The problem is the Senate operates differently than the House. And the House operates differently than the Senate. And if you hear the folks from the House talk about the Senate and you hear the folks from the Senate talk about the House, they clearly know that there's a difference. Matter of fact, I was watching, I have a tendency to watch committee hearings, and the new state senator, Bobby Harshbarger, was up presenting a bill to a committee, and they were asking, they were kind of grilling him because that's what you do to the rookies. You kind of haze them a little bit, right? And so they asked him to talk about his bill, and he maybe wasn't as prepared, or maybe his notes weren't where he wanted his notes to be. And so his line was, well, I know that it passed the House. And the other senators laughed and said, just because what happens in the House doesn't always happen in the Senate. London Lamar, a Democrat, was up, or maybe it was Charlene Oliver. It was either Charlene Oliver, it could have been Akbari. So it could have been one of 3 Democrats. It could have been Akbari, it could have been Lamar, or it could have been Oliver. Anyway, one of them got up with the next bill and said, in response to that, what happens in the Senate doesn't always happen in the House. So it's comical, but it's reality if you've watched the legislature operate. And so that's just the sausage being made. That's the process. Many of the people who participate in reorgs for the party are very impassioned volunteers. They're folks that knock on doors. They're folks that we rely on to really get the grassroots done. And they may or may not ever have the desire to serve in public office, but they want to be involved in ensuring that our people are elected. And so we couldn't do what we do without them. Many of us, Senator Burchett and I both, Senator Burchett, wow. He was a senator, he was a state senator. Congressman Burchett and I started about the same year in Knox County Republican politics when my political mentor, Lloyd Smith, was involved. And so we started about the same time in 1982, 1983, somewhere in that neighborhood. So, you know, it's interesting to watch things develop. But don't fall into the trap of what a lot of people will say. A lot of people will say, "Well, this is a change from one regime to another regime." Martin Daniel was a thoughtful state representative. He's conservative, but he knows how to work. He knows how to work to bring other sides together. And so I have a lot of confidence that Martin will work with the conservatives, he'll work with the moderates, and he'll work with the progressives within the Republican Party. Look, we're a supermajority party because we're a big tent, okay? And we need to embrace the big tent. And that's the only way that we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to grow the brand of Republicanism, particularly in Knox County. So all that to be said, I've worked with Daniel Herrera for at least 2/3 of his term. I worked with Buddy Burkhart for all of his term. I'll be working with Martin Daniel on his term. And we will continue to grow, and we'll continue to advance the Republican platform, the Republican principles. And, we'll have a lot more time. I'll try to get Martin Daniel on here in the near future. Maybe meet him over at Sam and Andy's Bexhill or somewhere. And we'll talk about Republican politics. But again, BrianHornback.com has been around for over 20 years. August, we will hit 21. BrianHornback.com is not going away. There is some things happening in the background right now that's going to make us bigger, better. And so look for that coming up. I'll be making lots of announcements about that. But we are growing exponentially. The amount of visitors we get is phenomenal. I cannot thank you enough for that. I think the podcasts are helping that. If I can just get into a routine of doing these regularly, shame on me. And so we're going to continue growing this because reality is the mainstream media is not doing the job. And so I will continue to be getting the information out to the best of my ability. You all know I have a full-time job. I have a family. And I'll do this because it is a hobby. It's something I enjoy doing. Getting ready to embark on a book in the near future. Probably writing about my days when I ran for public office as a 23-year-old against a 23-year incumbent. And then fast forward briefly to becoming a school board member and probably writing about some of the things that happened. That's the vision for the first book, is being a young 23-year-old thinking that, I could beat a 23-year incumbent and coming within 112 votes of doing it in 1990. And then I waited 10 years because, we had a kid to come along right after that campaign. That election was in August of 90, and my oldest son was born in October. And so during those first 10 years, I didn't feel that it was appropriate for me to run for public office. And so I didn't. And it wasn't until 2000 that I ran for school board and got elected, because at that point we had 3 kids in the school system. And so that was important to do it the right way. And then potentially talk about the after effects of that 2004 campaign, going into becoming chairman in 2005, and what I intentionally did to protect my family. Many of you know that you don't see my family in the world of politics. My 2 boys came out, all 3 of our kids came out to help in the 2010 Zach Want for Governor campaign, but never really have surfaced again in politics. And so it was their choice to be involved in the Zach Want campaign, and I did allow that. But I think that when you're in politics, you have to protect your family. Many of the key things I learned on school board is to protect my family after that. And so in 2005, when I decided to, in late 2004, when I decided to run for party chairman, I intentionally built what I call a firewall in guarding my family. And that was an important decision for me to do that. And it was important enough for me to protect my family. And so right now, I'm thinking about it. The book may or may not cover that part of it. That might be on a follow-up. But anyway, again, I'm a busy dude. It's all I know to do. And I certainly do appreciate all of you reading BrianHornback.com. Certainly appreciate you listening to the Brian Hornback experience. And I certainly appreciate folks like Interagency Insurance. I appreciate Marsha Blackburn. I appreciate Cameron Sexton. And I appreciate Old Forge Podcast Distillery located in Pigeon Forge. And with that, we'll head out of this one.